Alrighty, welcome back to another episode of KC Grid Talk, episode number 52. As always, my name is Caleb Vieska, and as always, joining me, Emery Lida and Alexander Searle. First of all, boys, on our front, a little bit of a grassroots weekend, if you want to call it, on our side. I was over at Route 66. Alex was over at the K1 World Finals. First of all, Alex, I guess talking to you, how was that from your guys' perspective? It seemed like a really cool event. We were watching it almost all night, Saturday night over in Indy.
That was one of the coolest events that I've been a part of. I gotta say, I mean, it's not every day that you get to put together that big of a rental cart contingency, I guess you can say. These are proper drivers, right? This is not just your average, rental league or just your Sunday night. Let's go for have a blast with some friends. Like these are some good drivers racing for good money. That 25 grand went to
Yeah.
the adult winner of the K1 Speed E World Championship on a 7-lap main at roughly, $3,500 a lap, essentially, if you split it up like that. That is, from my history in karting and my knowledge, the biggest payout for one race in the history of karting happened this past weekend at K1 Speed. The racing was awesome. A lot of these drivers had never experienced a real outdoor racetrack, let alone wet driving. And we gave them both on the same day.
Yeah.
That was so cool. The racing was awesome. And yeah, I hope we get to do more and more events like that.
Emery, I don't want to downplay, but you just, I think, spent your last weekend over at UNC, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, last full weekend. I mean, I graduate next Saturday, so that kind of, I'll get part of a weekend there. But yeah, I mean, it was last weekend, last LDoc, last class, last homework assignment, like accomplishing all those things. Got me a new street sign back in the background. It's been a fun last few days. I leave tomorrow for USPKS Trackhouse. Just gonna split everything up a little bit, but no, I mean it's been good to kind of spend the time at home. I hated to miss it with you guys. I hated seeing, in particular, the K1 crew going to my favorite restaurant out in California.
I haven't been, so I wouldn't know, but yeah, it looked
Yeah,
good.
that was a little bit of a sentimental moment for me, but no, I mean, altogether it was a good weekend in Chapel Hill, soaking up my last few memories there.
Yeah, for us over in Indy, we were over at Route 66. I think it's been about, I think, almost 2 years since we've been out there. So it's been quite some turn. Last time we streamed a race was 2022 for Route, and then we were there back last year, obviously at K1 Circuit Whiteland. It was going to be back this weekend watching some Route 66 racing action. Pleasure to share the mic with Nate Dean, of course, and seeing some of the racing in 206 Masters, the best that we've seen. I think that was my favorite race by far all year long. That was cool. Brandon Lemke doing Brandon Lemke things, again, warming up for this weekend over at USPKS. But outside of that, there was another big race taking place in Indiana, we should say, and one team, the K-Sig team, the Kappa Sigma fraternity, with Raif Shah, who's joining us tonight on the show. First of all, welcome, Raif, and congrats on the big win. And talk about the event, talk about the weekend, talk about the celebration if you want. How did it all go down for you guys?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's a great honor to be on the show. And yeah, a little bit about the race. It's not your traditional sprint race. It's a 160 lap endurance race. We got special go-karts made. So they've got roll cages, quick change gas tanks, a little bit of everything, seat belts. And over the course of the race, it lasts about an hour and 10 minutes or so. We've got to keep the cart running for all of it without crashing or breaking down. So it's definitely not your traditional sprint race that I'm used to and that you guys are probably used to, but it's a really cool event and glad to take it home for the fraternity.
Yeah, and to me, I think one of the coolest things is seeing like the process of building up the the carts for the race specifically. What was the build process like for you guys? What kind of goes into building obviously a cart? Those are different because they have a roll cage, obviously, and it's put on a standard chassis that we use. But again, you don't have any bumpers, just a roll cage. What's the process for you guys like, I guess, putting that together?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work. I think like when I came to the school and opened up the Grand Prix shed and took a look at what it was inside, it was a little older Comet Eagle with a pretty bare bones roll cage. So that's what I was racing the first 2 years, and then last year when Aiden Fox came to the school, we built up a fresh go-kart for him. And we worked with Doug Wright Racing. So he's a shop here in Lafayette. And he does a lot of sprint car and dirt track of stuff. But he spends his time as a Purdue Grand Prix winner. He also helps out all these teams building up the roll cages. So he's the one that did most of the heavy lifting in terms of the fabrication. He gets the roll cages done, the gas tanks done, seatbelts on, the headrest. He's got it all. So it's most of the work goes through him, and then we've got to just do the normal go-kart tuning stuff when we get to the track.
So what's the actual process like? Is it a year-round kind of work process, or is it like specific months where you guys are working on the actual carts?
For the most part, it's not too heavy. I mean, we don't really. The process is kind of like at the end of last year, we knew that we wanted to build another go-kart, another brand new one. So we went racing with this chassis over the summer, took it to Stars, ran OKN with it, did Rotax in it, and then we brought it back to school. And then pretty much we just handed it off to Doug in September, and he was able to just slowly work away at it on the weekends. He wasn't going racing himself, and pretty much just build up that cage. And then the process really starts again into crunch time around February. That's when they've got their first tech inspection. So we've got to bring everything that we have done. They go through. They've got a solid team of foundation members and tech inspectors that go through their whole checklist of safety items, make sure everything's checked off. And then there's another one at the end of February, and then it's pretty much just wait around until April comes and we get to go on track.
What are some of like the technical aspects that they look for? Because I know for me, I was a part of the Formula SE program at UCF, and it's a little bit different, obviously, when you go to Michigan, you take your car there and they look at your car. But what are some of the things that they're looking for in tech to make sure that you pass?
Yeah, I think the big thing is kind of that you just got everything there. I think a lot of teams struggle to meet those deadlines with how much actual fabrication work and modifications you need to make to the chassis versus standard one. But they've got some stricter rules. Every bolt's got to be safety wired. Like you got to have chain guards, all these little things that you don't really think about. You've got to have like fire extinguishers tagged. Got to bring both your gas tanks in, make sure they're not leaking. And then there's also like with the roll cage and the harnesses, there's a little bit of stuff that goes in there, and they make us do cart exit tests. So we've got 7 seconds to hop out of it if anything ever does happen. So it's just a little things that we don't really think about on the normal side of things when we go racing usually.
So that's the same kart that you drove at OKN, I believe at Trackhouse was the last time you ran it, correct?
Yeah, I think that was Fox's chassis. So we took Fox's chassis that he ran. But
got you.
Yeah, same thing.
Same idea. How different does that drive, like with the roll cage on and I guess the extra weight and stuff?
Honestly, the go-kart this year handled pretty good. I think Doug Wright, the way he fabricates it, he spent a couple of years kind of making some minor modifications. But we've got like big motocross springs on the side that help like dampen, I guess, the force of the roll cage. And the roll cage itself isn't really hard mounted. It's on these swivel joints. So we're able to the handle's great, just a little heavier than usual. But for the most part, the kart handles the same. But I mean, the kart that I was driving before Doug helped us out and built us a new one, that was a pretty tough challenge. It always felt like we were getting way too much side bite, just bouncing around through all the corners. And I didn't have much front end either.
Yeah, and we talked pre-show about the lap traffic. I mean, I can only imagine like you have upwards of 30 entries into the final race. Like,
yep.
How difficult is it to kind of maneuver the traffic and get through, knowing just how much quicker you are and kind of how well your car was set up and how well you were driving it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something new that I've never really had to experience before. I think the first 10 or so laps were still in clean air unless there's a big turn one pile up. But then once we start catching up to the back of the pack, there's 32 other karts on track at the same time on a 25-second lap track. So it's just nonstop. There's always some guys that are definitely not as experienced as we are that are trying to figure out how to pass people. They're getting into crashes towards the end of the race as well. Once your body starts fatiguing, you see guys that are just dropping wheels and flying across the track. So it's definitely got to stay sharp the whole time.
Yeah, and I guess on that note, What happened to Aiden there? Because I know that he was right there with you, and then looked like he got in a bit of an incident with lap traffic.
Yeah, he jumped me on the start, so got around me in turn one and was running pretty strong. I mean, he was gapping me a little bit, but then once we started cutting through traffic, there was some. They give us blue flags for the leaders, but some of these other guys, he thought that the blue flag was for him to get around another guy and kind of just pulled out right next to Aiden while he was trying to go around them both, and it just tore up his tie rod. And then after that was just kind of a struggle holding on for a bit, got into one or two more collisions with some lap traffic, and ultimately just too much damage to continue.
Yeah, but for both of you guys, I mean, obviously winning for the same fraternity back-to-back years, pretty special on that front. But beyond that, I mean, how did your relationship start with Aiden, and kind of where did you guys meet each other?
Yeah, so we've both been racing since kid karts, I'm pretty sure, but we're both from Connecticut, so we grew up racing at the same tracks, going through the Northeast region. I think we spent a lot of time together at OVRP doing the club races, and then going out doing the bigger stuff, whether it be Rotax or X30 or whatever it was at that time. We'd always just see each other at the track. And I'm a couple years older than him, so I didn't race him too much directly, but it was just great. We kept in contact for sure. We've always been talking when we were at the track as smaller kids. And then when he was coming to Purdue, we kind of figured it would be a good fit. He sounded like he liked the idea of joining a fraternity, and it kind of just fell right into place. We did a great job with the Grand Prix stuff, and I like karting. He likes karting, and we got a great group of guys in the house that he likes as well. So kind of just all happened.
So you kind of talked about, how you and Aiden met, y'all's club days racing together. How, we were talking before the show, you were racing kid kart. You've been racing since kid kart. Walk me through your story as well through karting, kind of your early days moving into either your junior days. And, I even saw a picture on your Instagram with, I think you were racing Rock or either X30, and it had a for sale sign on the side of your kart. Talk a little bit about, how you've gotten, through the years growing up racing, and then to the point where you are today, obviously racing at the Purdue Grand Prix.
Yeah, so I think it started off, my dad liked tracking cars. I grew up kind of just watching him go do laps at Lime Rock. And then he put me in a go-kart when I was like 7 or 8, and it just took off from there. We started off at Norwalk Karting, so it's a little 4-cycle club right on the beach parking lot. So I raced there till 2013, 2014, won a couple championships, all in 4-cycle stuff. And then I had my first experience running 2-cycle stuff at Englishtown. That was running in a Yamaha, and then basically right after that, we were hooked on the 2-cycle stuff and kind of took that next step. Bought a kart off Craigslist. It was an old Burrell with a direct drive Leopard, so we learned pretty quickly that wasn't the right engine that we needed. So it was just a big learning process between the two of us, and we just kind of made it work. Through 2015, 2016, was just running local club stuff, trying to just get as much seat time as possible. Bought another kart so I could run Rotax and tag, whether it be 2 different weekends or even on the same weekend. If we had a night race, I could run both classes, and was just pounding laps at OVRP as much as I could, just working on myself. He was working on how to be a better mechanic, and then it kind of just picked up a little bit. We started running F Series at the time, was pretty big around the Northeast, so we got to run some of those. Led the championships a couple times, but never closed the deal in the end. But yeah, I was just kind of getting started with my dad. I think those last couple years in 2016, 2017, where I was really doing like the full circuit, we were sending our heads out to get rehoned, and then we do all the assembly in our kitchen, put the bottom ends in the oven, put the bearings in the freezer, push them all together, and then go out and race against these guys, and managed to do a pretty decent job, and did some rock stuff as well. That was a lot of fun. Got a ticket to Vegas one year, so that was pretty cool to experience that for rock. And then after that was pretty much just focus on school. So haven't really done a full season since like 2019, but through the fraternity and through our alumni, they've been able to help me get back into it. So that's why these last couple of years I've been doing a couple of races here and there whenever the schedule allows over the summer.
Yeah, and so obviously it's been a while since you've done a full season, but how have you seen kind of the growth of karting? Obviously your last year, 2019, 6 years later, I think the sport's at a completely different point than where you left it. What have you thought about the sport, how it's grown, the changes that have gone on? What are your thoughts on it as a whole?
I think it's great. I mean, when I was racing, I was still running Leopards against X30s at the end of it. So I was kind of like that transition point. I think KA was pretty much new. I don't think I saw a KA racing until I drove one in like 2022. So that was pretty cool. New engine, new class, and getting to see that engine package kind of take off. And then I think as a whole, the product is a lot better. I think a lot of the series now are really pushing the spectacle of racing. There's a great show going on. You guys are doing a fantastic job covering all the action, and it's great to see. I mean, even when I'm not racing, haven't been doing a full series, I'm always tuning into all the big races, watching your guys stream, and it's just great to keep up with all the people I used to race, all my friends. They're still going at it, and I just love to see the growth of the sport.
Absolutely. And I mean, last year you got a chance to jump into the OKN, a direct drive package again. I mean, how was that coming back for the pro show stuff in 2024?
Yeah, that was sweet. That was kind of I helped out Aiden with the Purdue Grand Prix. I gave him the brand new kart. So Christian from Fox and Karting, he helped me out, let me an engine to go run. And I think at GoPro I've always been decent enough. So it kind of seemed like a good time to get back into the seat with him. And driving the OKN was just amazing. I don't think I used to drive like the X30s and Rocks and stuff, but the OKN was just a different beast altogether. Just feeling all that power and also having to work on my smoothness again as well, because those things they don't treat you nicely if you bog it a little bit. So it was it took a little getting used to, but in the end it was just a great time.
Absolutely. And I mean, now you look ahead, you're talking possibly about maybe doing some races in the summer this year. Would you like to do that in OKN, or do you have another engine package on your minds?
I think my driving style suits the yellows a little better. So, I mean, if I have the chance to run an OKN, I'll definitely do that. I don't know if I can hang with the guys running X30 at the bigger races, but I think with the OKN, I was able to do decently all right. So that could be a great deal because Christian's always producing great engines and never had any problems running any of his stuff. So that could be a great fit if I don't end up running K.
What do you think it is about your driving style that suits the yellows better?
I think in general, I've just kind of grown up always racing the grippier tires, whether it's in Leopard or X30 or whatever. So whenever I feel like I'm driving KA, I'm always chasing rear grip basically. It's just the cart's sliding around a little too much for my liking, and I don't really have that. I'm not racing enough, I don't think, to really have that feel for it. So I think it's just a little easier. Just I'm able to turn it in, be a little more aggressive, and the tires just have grip.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit to the Grand Prix discussion. I mean, it's been 68 years of the Purdue Grand Prix. We've seen a lot of karting drivers go through the pipelines and win it. And I mean, obviously you had Jimmy Simpson winning 4 in a row back in the mid 2010s. You had Alexander Kardashian winning in 2021. And then obviously Michael Cruz into Aiden Fox and then now you. I mean, just I guess as someone that's a senior at Purdue that's kind of been through the whole process numerous times at this point, how special was it to finally get that win and kind of feel the elation of such a spectacular event? I mean, I would say as far as racing events go at colleges, it's probably the most notorious one in the U.S.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the event is just great. It's not just that race day. The whole week leading up to it is just parties everywhere on campus. You look, everyone's excited for the race. I think winning it was pretty great, but I mean, just knowing that it's such a long-standing tradition. I mean, when I go out to race like Stars or USPKS like I did last year, whenever people see me wearing a Purdue shirt, they are always like, "Oh yeah." There are a lot of people that go to Purdue. They ask about the Grand Prix, ask how I do in it, and then wish me the best of luck. And everyone seems to really care about it. And the event itself is just great. There's just packed stands lining the whole surrounding of the track, and it's just like a nonstop party pretty much that whole day.
So how was the party afterwards?
Yeah, that was pretty good. I think this year we spent it at the bars. So I brought the trophy up once we went through tech. I showed up a little bit later than all my brothers in the fraternity, but once we got there with the trophy, it was a great time. A lot of drinks, a lot of free drinks for me, but
Nice.
yeah, it was pretty nice. Can't complain at all.
What are like? I've always wondered, right? Like, I think in any race you obviously get nervous, but like seeing the amount of people that are there, obviously your friends are there, your fraternity's there. What are the nerves like whenever you are like on that grid? Do you guys have the I think the like Le Mans type starts where you guys run and get in the go karts, or how does the race start?
Oh no, there's no. It's just like a rolling start.
Okay.
So we've got a pace car that leads us around for a couple laps, and then they just send it green. But yeah, it's like we just line up on the grid, kind of like the pro show, I guess.
Yeah.
Line up on the grid. We've got one guy holding a fire extinguisher and one guy holding a starter, and then basically hop in once the national anthem's done, buckle up, and then get underway.
What are the nerves like whenever you are buckling up and obviously, you're about to go racing for 160 laps, fences are aligned, your fraternity's there. What's that experience like from under the helmet?
Yeah, it's something completely different than what I'm used to. I think the nerves are definitely there more than usual at these other races. Just knowing that there's so many people watching. I've got the support of everyone basically. It's not like at these big races we got these different teams and I've got my small little crew. It's just everyone's there to see a great race. And I mean, starting on pole this year was definitely a little nerve-wracking trying to keep my composure. And then I mean, as the race goes on, it cools down a little bit, but there are multiple close calls that I can't even remember at this point. I just remember going through that race and just thinking, oh God, like this could be the end right here. Just following a pack of lap cars, not sure if they're gonna get out the way or if I should just send it in on them. It's nerve-wracking the whole time.
How chaotic does it get? Because like I know for me, if I had a go-kart with that much roll bars around me, I'd probably chuck it in every chance I get.
Yeah.
So what is the actual like racing like? Does it get really chaotic at points?
Yeah, it's pretty chaotic. I mean, the level of the field is obviously nothing too crazy. It's a lot of guys. It's their first time racing in a go-kart is at Purdue, so there's definitely a huge spread coming from like the guys running up front that have all had USPKS starts, for example, versus the engineering club that just has a freshman driver who's interested in motorsports. So this whole time you're kind of trying to gauge and trying to make sure that people know you're there when you're behind them. So giving them a couple bumps here and there is not a bad idea. Just let them know you're there. And then for the most part, the grid is pretty nice. I mean, they all like a bunch of guys came up to me before the race and was like, oh, if I turn around and see your green stickers, I'll try to make sure that I'm out of the way. I'm not going to cut you off or anything. But it's just a different experience, just seeing the different level. And there's some guys that don't really care that you're behind them. They'll ignore the blue flags. They just pretend like they don't see it. So you gotta make sure that when you do send it in on them, it's a good enough send where they don't have any chance to take you out.
I know, like obviously other frats run. Do you guys have like beef with them before getting in there? Like they're trying to block you guys on purpose. Any of that stuff going on?
I'd say for the most part, our relationship with the other fraternities are pretty good. I think one of the guys that we have a good relationship. There's a couple of guys, but like Ayrton Hauk, he won the like Team USA scholarship a couple of years back. He's running USF now. And I mean, through practices and stuff, we're always talking, helping each other out. And there's not too much beef, I don't think, or at least not with my team. But yeah, everyone's pretty chill for the most part. Nothing too crazy.
Well, that's always a good sign, I would say, right? I guess moving forward onto it, you said you were looking at living in Indy, right? Are you a senior in college now?
Yep, I'm a senior. My last exams are on Friday, and then I'm free.
So you said you planned on living in Indy, moving to Indy. What are your plans of after college? I guess either work life, and either getting back into the scene. I know you're interested in that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in motorsports. I'm studying mechanical engineering here, and I've got some good, cool experiences working for different race teams. I think like last summer I was working for Arrow Mclaren as an intern. That was pretty amazing, and I'm kind of addicted to that feeling now. So hopefully some positions open up here in the near future that I can get my hands back in the door in that paddock, or just try to keep my foot in the door in the world of motorsports. And I'm planning on holding out for a little bit. I've got my lease in my apartment here till the end of July, so hopefully I can get something sorted by then, and just stay in the world of motorsports before looking at some HVAC jobs or something like that.
It'll come up quick, man. Always try to stay in the karting paddock as much as you can.
Yep.
I was gonna say on the Purdue Grand Prix. I mean, like you mentioned, now you can say finally you end it off. You win on your last one. Going forward the next couple of years, I know Aiden still has a couple more chances at it.
Yeah.
Are you planning to kind of stick around and try to help out a little bit, try to continue the legacy a little bit?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I think Aiden's pretty capable, and I think it'll be cool to watch him do his own work next year. He was doing a little more watching this year. He hurt his wrist actually a couple weeks ago, so he couldn't help me change tires or anything. So I had to do all that myself with the help of some other guys. But it'll be nice to not be as hands-on with it for sure. But I'll be around if they need the help. Definitely want to keep the legacy going. So it'd be great if we can keep that rolling.
Absolutely. And quick shout out here before we kind of finish off this segment. Indy Cassie, another guy that has a good amount of karting experience over the years, ran his way from 17th, I believe, up to finish in the runner-up spot, following up a top 5 from last year as well. So awesome job to Indy. I know I raced both of you guys at various points. Indy, like way back in like 2016, 2017. Raif raced you in like 2023, I think, at Stars. So
Yep. I was there for a couple of them.
Yeah, I was trying to make a list like through the weekend of like all the guys that I raced against on that grid. So it's always nice to see kind of the representation you get from our karting paddock on the Purdue Grand Prix, because as we've talked about, it's extremely special. 60 plus years of experience. You have a lot of famous names in both the karting community and the community in general winning the race. So I mean, for us, this was an episode that I've really wanted to do, just to kind of highlight the event. I know we have Caleb Smock as someone that's kind of worked on our team in the past, and he's probably one of the biggest supporters, biggest advocates for the race. So
he hasn't had luck there, but I mean,
he sent me a video of how his race ended.
Oh,
I think last year.
Yeah.
That was crazy, but
yeah. So no, I mean, it's a special event, and I mean, once again, I mean, congratulations on it, man.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah,
was that your like one of your biggest accomplishments, would you say, in college, and I would say in racing? Do you think?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I've won a couple of races here and there, but nothing. I mean, nothing as like fulfilling, I'd say, as winning this. I mean, winning like some club championships is cool. Some regional stuff is fun, but this was definitely the highlight. Just having all the amount of like supporters they had just kind of makes it a little different than usual.
I saw you guys had the milk as well there, right? How was that? I saw Aiden showered you in it, but you know, was that like a refreshing feeling for you?
Yeah, it's great. I think that's one of those traditions that we have here as being part of like the IMS circuit. Like this year, they laid down some bricks from IMS onto the straightaway. I actually got a brick for winning the whole thing.
Nice.
So it's pretty cool, and that milk tradition is just all part of the spectacle.
Nice. Well, Raif, we're getting close to the end of our segment here with you, but at the end, we usually give our guests a moment to, I guess, promote themselves a little bit, what they got coming up, and where we can find you on social media, races that you're planning on doing maybe later on this year when we'll see you back in the national karting paddock. Fire away. The floor is all yours.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to thank the sponsors that we had this year. They're all part of our Kappa Sigma fraternity effort. So it'd be Fox and Son Karting, Grismer Tire, Walsh Construction, and the Refuge Air Ranch. They all made this race possible these last 2 years and helping us build a dynasty. And then as far as my future plan goes, hopefully as I said, I'll be able to keep my foot in the door in the world of motorsports. Hopefully I'll be at the Indy 500 these next couple of years, working as an engineer. That's the dream. And I'm definitely planning on buying a kart, going out to these races, running where I can, especially ones in Newcastle if I end up in Indy. So just look forward to it. Look forward to seeing you guys at the track, and can't wait.
And I actually lied. I have one more question for you. You were saying you were working with Arrow Mclaren. What were you doing in your internship? And I guess what are you looking forward to working with them? I guess in the future.
Yeah, so I worked with them last year as just an engineering intern. So I was kind of helping out the systems engineers. So it's basically just looking at the data that comes off the car, making sure everything's in a normal operating range, doing a lot of calibrations at the shop, just kind of double checking everything. And then unfortunately, I'm not returning with them this year. But if a full-time position open up, hopefully I can get my foot back in the door with them or any other team.
Yeah. So the plan's IndyCar for you, would you say, as kind of a career?
Yeah, hopefully. I'm talking to some USF teams, and hopefully that's definitely a good stepping stone to get back up into the IndyCar.
Oh yeah. Well, Raif, I guess that's it. That was my last one. I know I guess threw you a dummy there, but that's actually it. We appreciate you for joining us, and hope to see you back in the National Karting Paddock pretty soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and yeah, I also hope to see you guys soon. Thank you very much.
Sounds good. We appreciate you, Raif. Have a good night.
You too.
Well, there you guys have it from Raif Shah, this year's Purdue Grand Prix winner. It was a pleasure to have him. Coming up next, Dusty Davis joins the show right after this quick commercial break. Are you looking to take the next step in your racing journey? Well, look no further than PitFit.
With 2 locations in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Indianapolis, Indiana, PitFit trains drivers all the way from grassroots level karting to IndyCar and NASCAR, with top-of-the-line personalized coaching to improve physical and cognitive fitness.
For more information on programs, check out PitFit on Instagram or Facebook today.
Hey, what's up, Caleb?
What's up, Brandon?
You sound defeated. A long day at the office?
Yeah, got stuck at a cat food marketing meeting for like 3 hours. I don't know a thing about cat food, and I don't even work in marketing. And then I got sent on a coffee run like I was some sort of intern. Then at the end of the day, when I want to go get gas, I just realized everything is so darn expensive nowadays, man.
Yeah, you got that right.
Like, do you have any idea how much we're spending on Netflix?
That's like $20 a month.
Do you know how much we're spending on cable?
That's like $50 a month.
But you know what isn't expensive?
Tell me.
Kart Chaser Premium. For only $9.99 a month, you can watch all the American karting action live from coast to coast. Subscribe and become a member today.
Alrighty, welcome back to KC Grid Talk, episode number 52. As you guys saw in the description, we had Raif Shah, this year's winner of the Purdue Grand Prix. And joining us next on the show, I think Emery, quite familiar with this driver, shared a couple of races with him. And he's actually shared a couple of races over at the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Dusty Davis, welcome to the show. I see you're in your garage now, migrated over. Good to see you tonight. And how was the travels up to Trackhouse this weekend?
So it's not too bad. I live about an hour and a half away, up on Lake James, so just right in the mountains of North Carolina. Beautiful area, love it up there, and can't beat that. Trackhouse is right in our backyard. We came down early, and we actually are camping this weekend up in the parking lot area, and had some technical difficulty with Starlink, which I'm sure you guys are used to.
Oh yeah.
So came down to the garage, and thankfully the Wi-Fi is working down here. Much better. So we're in the garage here, and you guys can actually see I have 2 sides of the garage. So this side is actually the lounge side. We have some TVs, fridge, a big couch, and then we got some of the hardware that my wife doesn't let me keep at the house. So I keep it over here in the garage.
Are those some IKF Screaming Eagles up there? Was that what that was?
You're dating me real bad right now. So there's a Duffy up in the corner hidden. There's some Screaming Eagles. There's some WKA Grand Eagles from back in the day. And then there's some new stuff up there. There's some USPKS. One USPKS here about 5 years ago in KA Senior. There's some Gear Up. And then Miami Grands. So those are some of the more recent ones.
Which one's your favorite, would you say?
Trophy-wise, I would have to say Miami Grands. Eric Jones went all out on the Miami Grand trophies. And so that thing's definitely pretty sweet. And one of my favorite wins because you won a motor out of it. So, it's rare in karting that you come out the other end better than you started as far as the money you put in versus the money you receive. And Miami Grand, they were putting up engines that year, so it made it worthwhile to go run it.
Man, I would have said the Duffy. That trophy to me is I think one of the coolest ones that we have in karting that's still around. But it's all right. I respect it. The Miami Grand ones are really nice. So I'll give you
No, and I don't
kudos for
even
that.
do they even run IKF Grands anymore for Duffys?
Yeah. So we had one 2 years ago here in the past years they've been in Texas. 2 years ago it was at Speed Sports Racing Park.
Oh wow.
And then last year it was in Amarillo, and this year it goes back to K1 Circuit. So
Awesome.
back to California, and then they're actually running the road I guess road racing IKF Grand Nationals again this year for the first time. That's going to be at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway this year. So that's pretty cool. That trophy's still kicking around.
No, and I'm jumping off topic here a little bit, but growing up on the West Coast, racing IKF Region 7 back in the day in the early 2000s, I mean, so blessed as a kid because the competition was incredible back then. I mean, I remember the first cadet race I ran, which would be like what is Mini Swift now. At the time, it was Comer. There was a B main, and all I wanted to do was just make the A main. There was 52 karts, and I made the A main, and my entire goal was just not to get lapped. And so, the competition at IKF, in the early 2000s was second to none. And, the West Coast kind of seemed to struggle since then, in recent years, but it was a really special time to be in karting.
Yeah, and I guess take us back to your early days in karting as well. You've been around, I think, for quite some time as you try to flick the lights back on. But you've been around the karting paddock, I think, for quite some time. You still stick around. Talk about your early days and what brings you back, year after year to run at your local track whenever those big national races do come to town.
Yeah, so I started karting at my local go-kart track in Las Vegas at age 7, and that was Xplex, which sadly is no longer there, but Spring Mountain has just recreated it, which is incredible. And so really started out there for fun as a way for me as a child to get my energy out. I'm sure I was jumping off the walls and just found a knack for it, really enjoyed the competition side of it, the strategy side of it. And just kind of had a knack for finding speed. And so we started running the local stuff and won a championship. And then my dad took me to my first IKF race just to see if I could even do it. Right. And I was just a club kid back then. I was 8 years old. And like I said, it was at Paris, California. And my entire goal was just make the main. I mean, there was 50 something karts there, and I think 35 started the main. And so, I started the main and didn't get lapped. And from there, started racing on the West Coast with IKF, won some championships in cadet at IKF, won a Duffy, was really fortunate to do that. Raced at a lot of really cool tracks on the West Coast that aren't there anymore. Rocky Moran being one of them. And, it was just a really good time in karting then, and then moved up into what was called the Snap-on Stars of Karting at the time, which was, I guess, what we would probably consider SCUSA now. It had some TV coverage on Speed Channel at the time. Snap-on Tools was a big sponsor, so there was a lot of money involved. And raced that, won the national championship in JICA, which was junior ICA at the time. That would be the equivalent of like an X30 junior now, when I was 14. And, just really from age 8 to 14, just raced all over the country, got an opportunity to go race in Europe a little bit at the time I was with Maranello. So they brought me over and raced a little bit over there. And then when I hit 14 is when I had to kind of make that decision. Did I want to stay in karting or did I want to try and make a career out of it? And so I started doing the circle track route. So went over to the local bull ring at Las Vegas and raced legend cars, and then moved up to super late models, and was just really fortunate that had a lot of good breaks, a lot of good people helping me. I mean, my family didn't have the money to get me past legend cars. And I just had a team that was running super late models that saw me winning races, wanted me to go do it. So I got the opportunity to race super late models. Next thing I know, I'm winning super late model races. got an opportunity to race K&N cars. First K&N race I ran in Phoenix, finished third. That got me an opportunity to go race in the Truck Series. And when I was 18, moved out to North Carolina and raced in at the time was the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Then it became Camping World Truck Series, and did that for a few years. And yeah, just, really that's kind of the peak of where I was. And then after the Truck Series, was kind of in a crossroads of, what to do next. And that's when Justin Marks was actually a fellow competitor of me in the Truck Series. And he told me that he was starting a go-kart track and wanted to know if I had any interest in being part of it. And so, sat down with him, explained his vision, and next thing I know, I'm working at a go-kart track.
Yeah, and I mean, since then, I feel like you've probably put more laps around the place than pretty much anyone. Granted, off and on over the years, you've had times where you couldn't really drive much for various different reasons. But what's been kind of the main motivation to still come back year after year after year since 2013 to kind of continue on the local scene and the national scene? Because really at this point, it's been 12 years since that first year of Trackhouse. And every year in some capacity, it feels like you're back and putting in laps, putting in wins behind the seat.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I told my wife that I want to do it as long as I can be competitive, just because I love the sport. I mean, racing through all the ranks I have all the way up to NASCAR, I think karting is the most purest form of motorsports in that it really comes down to the driver. And the chassis and the motor makes a little different, but the driver makes the most amount. And as you get further up, oh, my light turned off again. As you get further up in motorsports, the driver makes less and less of a difference. And, all the other factors make more of a difference. And so, just really enjoy getting out here and still seeing if I have the capability to do it. And, thankfully haven't lost it yet. I know age is not on my side. So at some point I'll have to hang up the hat, but as long as I can come out here and compete with these guys that race every week at the national level and be at their lap time, I'm going to do it. And for me, really at this point in my life, it's just such a good, way to stay in shape, motivation to continue to stay in shape. As you guys know, it's incredibly hard to race these go-karts. And so it keeps me motivated to stay in shape so that when I do come race, 5-6 times a year, that I have an opportunity to be successful.
So I guess going back to, the original project with Trackhouse, what was your involvement early on with Trackhouse? I'm super new to the sport. 2021, I talked about it, before the show. What was your involvement with Trackhouse in those early days?
So Justin and Michael McDowell had already designed the track at this point. And when I sat down with Justin and told him, that the NASCAR thing wasn't working out for me because I didn't have money and I was struggling to find sponsors. And, I just saw the writing on the wall that wasn't going to be a long-term career for me. Justin actually informed me that, he was building this go-kart track. And at that point, it was almost done. And so I kind of walked in the door right at the very end. The main building, which is now the lobby and the banquet hall, that wasn't finished yet. But I was here for day one when we were literally putting the barriers out on the track, and, getting all those out. And then, started as a track manager. So really just running everything from the doors out. And there was another gentleman named Dan Kraus who basically ran from the doors in. We worked together for probably 5 years doing that. And then Dan ended up leaving, and I took over the entire operation here and did that for another 2 years. And then it's all a blur. I want to say 2019 is when I stepped down and Dan Brewer took over and is running the place ever since.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess what kind of development have you seen in the sport over the course of those 12 years? And I guess both at Trackhouse and then over in general, like looking outwards and seeing kind of the national growth over the course of the 12 years that you've kind of been back in the forefront of karting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Series come and go, right? So like when we first started here, Rotax was huge. Rotax was the dominant series, especially on the East Coast. SCUSA was newer. And then, for various reasons, Rotax sizzled out. SCUSA took over, and then you saw USPKS come into the marketplace. And now with, some of the other series as well, and with the F series and that. And, I would say karting is continuing to grow from my standpoint, and that's awesome to see. I mean, I remember when we first would run national races, people would come in here on a Wednesday, right, before and set up. And I came here last Friday, and half the teams had all their stuff set up, and they were already doing testing. And I mean, that tells you how much serious or everybody's taking these events. And honestly, I think Kart Chaser has a big part of that. I mean, you guys, to see what has happened to the sport of karting since Kart Chaser has been involved, and how it's elevated karting, and brought karting to the forefront of motorsports in a way that we never had the capability before. It's been neat to see, and I think karting is going to continue to grow, and thanks to Kart Chaser, you can watch it anywhere. You could be a local kid and watch into the national races, and so yeah, it's been an interesting ride to watch it all. But I think karting has a good path for the future.
Yeah, and I want to shift gears back a little bit to kind of your time working, sort of overseeing all of the operations of Trackhouse or GoPro back then in 2018, 2019, in that time frame. I mean, there's a lot that goes into trackside operations that a lot of people won't understand. We talked about it a little bit a couple of weeks ago. I mean, what do you feel like the most satisfying part of that role was? And then what's something that I think a lot of people wouldn't expect as a difficulty of that role that you could kind of elaborate on?
Yeah. So, I would say, especially running a facility of this level, right? GoPro is one of the premier tracks. You have your entire rental kart business, which really is your bread and butter. That makes you most your money. And so, you put a lot of effort into that. However, the racing kart side for the track doesn't make a lot of money, but it makes a lot of money for Kart Sport and for Eric's side of the business. And so you want to host these events to keep that going. And so I would say, the racing kart side of things is almost second to rental karts. And I hate to say that just for the local stuff, because the rentals make so much income. But when I tried to run it, I still treated our club, and we're so fortunate at Trackhouse that the club is the biggest in the country by average. And so I tried to run it as a national race. When you came to a Trackhouse club race, I wanted you to feel like you were at a national race, whether that was with officiating, with presentation, with banners, signs, layout of the grid. So we really tried to keep that standard. And I think we did a great job of that. We even had, live stream before Kart Chaser was a thing. We had it streaming.
Dusty beat us to the punch on that one by about 3 years.
Yeah. So we used to have it live streamed on YouTube. So we really did a good job. I would say the toughest thing is as the track manager, general manager of the track, it's a thankless job when it comes to karting, because, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And, you're the guy that gets beat up the most when parents are upset. And so, that's honestly what burned me out. And I hate to say it, is I loved karting. I loved hosting these events, but I got burned out by the parents at the time and just realized I need to do something else. But, the most rewarding part of it is when you do throw a good event on and, you get 200 plus entries at a karting challenge and everything does go well. At the end of the day, that's a big feat. I mean, putting on these events is a lot of effort. You guys know it. I mean, for a local club race here, I mean, we used to have 25 staff on a club day, and race directors we were flying in, and so it's a big ordeal. And so anytime it goes well, it makes you feel good.
What are some of the things that, 'cause you said you got burnt out by it, right? Is it burnt out by being like a manager and being an operator, or burnt out from maybe the sport a little bit? Do you ever feel like sometimes you just have to take a step back and like stay home sometimes and not be around the sport as much?
I would say no. I don't think I ever lost the passion for it. I just got to the point where, you know, I felt like we were doing a really good job at the club, and we were still getting a lot of upset parents at the end of the day, for stuff that was happening on track. And unfortunately, as the manager, right, you get the brunt of it. You get the phone call on Monday, Tuesday, and it just got to the point where, for me, it was like, we're never going to satisfy everybody. And, I was just getting kind of burned out by that. And honestly, I just needed to step away for a little bit and kind of regroup. And so Dan Brewer, came in and took over the track for them and has done a great job ever since.
So I guess now, you were on the business side of it, being that track general manager, and now you're on the customer side of it. What are you kind of, seeing, going back to those Trackhouse Club races? What are you, I guess, expecting on a customer standpoint? What works? What do you think doesn't in today's day and age that we live in now in karting, whether it's national, club, regional, whatever you want to call it?
I mean, I think the biggest thing I see is, and it's probably clubs across the country, is trying to hold officiating to a standard so that we can teach these up and coming racers, the correct way of the race. And I would say that that's a challenge at the club level, is finding good race directors, finding enough staff to be able to officiate, these races correctly, so that we can teach these kids, the right and wrong way to race. That I know that's a challenge for Dan, is, to keep staff on a karting challenge day. And he's done a great job with the limited staff he has. As a customer, it's been fun to come back and race, and I kind of found my passion again. I was burned out there, and now getting to come back as a customer, I don't have to deal with the complaints when stuff goes wrong. And so just really getting to enjoy that aspect of it, I'd say is been nice.
Absolutely. Has there ever been any serious, I guess what I'm getting at on this is, what's kind of the most interesting interaction you've had on the customer side since leaving that general manager position, good or bad?
I'd say, and I know Matt Langford would laugh about it. I don't even remember what happened, but Brent Cruz, which is a phenomenal racer, something happened in a club race, and Brent got tangled up. And next thing I know, Matt Langford is throwing a tire over the top of the building, and it clears the building and bounces on the backside of the scale house. That was probably the most eye-opening moment of, wow, we're, people really take this serious. And honestly, they should. A club race at Trackhouse is probably the biggest and best club in the country.
Oh yeah, by far, yeah.
And then on the driver's side, is there any one particular thing that you would say is kind of got you into something in those?
I would say, I would say I really, over the years, enjoyed the battles. Trying to run senior at now 33. A lot of drivers come and go right over 12 years. I mean, I remember when we first opened, battling Ashley Rojero a bunch, and battling you as well. Blake Hunt, really remember a lot of those battles early on. As the years progressed, some of the junior drivers, even, oh gosh, Brent Cruz. I remember coaching Brent Cruz in a kid kart, and then fast forward, and now he's racing me in the senior division out here. Just makes you feel really old. But, really I enjoyed those battles, getting to race Brent and Connor Zillage and some of those kids that, I coached really early on, and getting to race with them now as adults. And, I would say over the years, you have the people that you butt heads with, right? Personality rise on the racetrack. You may not align. I think Massimino, Paulie and I have had our runs-ins over the years. But, I respect the heck out of Paulie. He's a phenomenal driver. And I think, sometimes two bulls on the racetrack don't get along. And, so we've had our run-ins, but, I've enjoyed it all, even the good and the bad. You really enjoy getting to race with these guys. And, these guys race every weekend at a national event almost. And so for me to just be able to come out here and compete against them is, satisfying.
Yeah. You mentioned the topic of coaching, and I've been staring at that license plate behind you the whole time.
Yeah.
You and Gray have worked together at this point for almost a decade. And I say like work together in the sense that like you kind of coached her when she was in mini and into junior. And now it seems like you guys kind of, maybe not as much in the last few months and year, but like in general, there'll be a lot of races that you guys will go out and race together. I mean, talk about the relationship you have with her and kind of the driver coaching that you were able to do with Gray Ledbetter.
Yeah, so I mean, Gray, Connor, and Brent were probably my three kids that I coached really early on in cadets, kid karts. Brent and Gray definitely a lot more. And Gray, I started helping her when she just moved into Mini Swift, and coached her all the way through her junior days in Tag Junior, and then she ended up moving on to race professionally, and now she races professionally in the Championship Off-Road Series. I think she's actually racing this weekend, and so it's been fun to go full circle with Gray, where from the driver coach at the very beginning when Gray was 8 years old to now, she's an adult. She's what is she now, 20, and she comes out here and runs some of these clubs with me. And, we're working on the karts together. We're getting the karts ready. We're racing on the track together. It's been, it's really rewarding to see all that effort, pay off in the fact that, getting to see what a talented race car driver she's become. And also Brent. I mean, just, it's really cool to watch, him as well and what both of them have been able to do with their careers.
Yeah, and I guess next for you, you were talking about, I guess, working with people for quite some time. The team that you run for now, quote unquote, Ryan Perry, you and him have a really long relationship for quite some time. You were saying he was your mechanic back in the day. How has y'all's relationship kind of progressed throughout the years? And obviously you've worked with him for a number of years. I guess talk about when you guys met, where you guys are now, obviously for you running his livery and, in your garage, but still helping him out with some coaching.
Yeah, so on the West Coast, like I said, growing up racing IKF Region 7, Ryan was a kid racing. He was always older than me. So, if I was in cadets, he was in junior too. When I moved up to junior, he was in senior. And then, right around 17, he started wrenching. And so Ryan actually was my go-kart mechanic when I was racing in cadets. And we won a lot of races together. Ryan was a phenomenal wrench, and kind of was a mentor to me, right? He had gone through the ropes, he had won races, and so really was a coach / mechanic for me. And then, when I ended up moving on to racing the oval track routes, obviously Ryan went on and stayed in karting, and then at some point started his own team, Ryan Perry Motorsports. And really, we disconnected. I hadn't talked to Ryan in a long time. I kept tabs on him and seeing that he had been successful in karting and, had won a bunch of SCUSA races with Jake Craig back in the day and that, and, was happy to see that, but we really didn't connect. And then about 2 years ago, a December club race, Ryan Perry comes walking into my garage and shakes my hand, and we start talking. And next thing I know, he's telling me he's moving to North Carolina and he's going to, base his operations out of Trackhouse. And really since then, I told Ryan, I said, well, man, I'm on board. So, whatever you need help with, I'm here for you. And so, really have raced under Ryan's umbrella ever since. I still pit out of my garage because why wouldn't you, right? It's right on the front here, right next to the grid. But, run all Ryan's stuff, share my data with Ryan. That helps him with some of the other senior drivers at the club and at the national level, and, have done a little bit of coaching for Ryan on some stuff. And, really that's one of those relationships that's just come full circle. That's the cool thing about karting, right? Is, Ryan and me as kids, right? And fast forward now, and Ryan's an adult, has kids, has a race team, and I get to come run under his name with his team and try and win races for him. And, that honestly for me gives me more motivation. Like, I want to win just as bad for Ryan as I do for myself, because I know how much it means to him. And so, I've really enjoyed working with the RPM guys, and Ryan's been around a long time. And so I really have benefited from just bouncing ideas off of them, setup changes, tire pressure, all that stuff. And so it's been a good partnership.
I guess kind of similar to that, you were talking about your career. I feel like I did some digging through your Instagram. I saw you were running some UTVs as well not long ago. What's kind of been your favorite? What was that like? Obviously, it's dirt, completely different. You have some jumps in that. How have you brought everything back together, I guess, years later and been so dominant in recent years,
Yeah. So, UTVs were a blast, and Gray actually still races them. She
Yeah.
races the championship off road series professionally for Can-Am. She's a Can-Am factory driver. And a few years ago, I got the opportunity to race a few races with her with Yamaha, and had a blast. I mean, you want to talk about just strap in and hold on, baby. I mean, that is what UTV racing is on short course with those jumps. And actually, I was able to win a race, and so really enjoyed that. And then so UTV racing was probably one of my favorites. I would say my second favorite to karting would be wing sprint cars, believe it or not. When I was like 15, 16, right before I started racing in NASCAR, I was racing a little bit of everything, and I ran some winged 410 sprint cars. And I mean, holy macro. I mean, what a beast. You're just strapped between an engine basically with a wing on it, and you just let her eat. And so that was really fun. But honestly, I mean, out of everything, karting I enjoy the most. And, I think it goes back to it's the purest, right? The driver can make up the most amount of lap time in a go-kart. And so for me, I really enjoy that, and that aspect of the racing.
I want to pick your brain a little bit because you talked about, obviously your tenure as a manager there, besides your racing experience as well. You talked about one of the biggest things being a manager was trying to make sure that everyone, the officiating was good, everything was fair. What have you found, whether as now a customer, a driver, you've grown up driving, or as a manager, that keeps people the happiest in regard to the way officiating is run at a racetrack?
I would say, and at the time, I probably didn't do a good enough job of giving our team credit. I was really critical and always trying to improve. But I would say when we were the last 2 years when I was running the club here, and we had Morgan, we were flying Morgan in to do the officiating. We had live streaming. We had slow-mo replays of the race starts. We had literally a speed board coming down the front stretch to make sure the field wasn't going too fast. I mean, I think we did a really good job back then of officiating. You're not going to make everybody happy, but and really what confirmed that was when I took a step back and then came back as a competitor. How many people came up to me and said, "Man, we really appreciated the way you guys ran that and the way you guys did that." And you always hear the bad as a promoter, right? And it's rare you hear the thank yous. And so to hear that, coming back a few years later really, made me appreciate the effort that we did. And I would say that's honestly on a karting event, that's the toughest thing, right? Is officiating. And I always told Morgan, and I helped her officiate, but I let her make the calls. Is I would rather make a call, um, because you think it's the right thing, then don't make a call. Because at the end of the day, someone's going to be upset whether you made a call or not make a call. So go with your gut and trust your gut. If you think that's a penalty, do the penalty. I'll deal with the consequences because you need to do what you feel's right. And I feel like nowadays, almost a lot of officials are afraid to make a call because they don't want to upset people. And I feel like that hurts karting, because you gotta hold everybody accountable. That's the only way that you can control aggressive driving, and that's one thing I've definitely seen. From starting in 2004 myself to now is the aggression level has really increased, and the racecraft is honestly getting poor, and there's a multitude of reasons, but I feel like on the officiating side, growing up, it was a lot tougher and you got a lot more penalties. But it made you learn and second guess a move, right? Hey, should I make this move? If this move doesn't work out, I'm probably going to get penalized for it.
Well, I think besides that, like you're old school. You were around for the kind of the progression of a go-kart in a way. I would argue that part of the way people drive, besides you could argue officiating here and there, is you have your pushback bumpers, you have a couple other
Yes, yeah.
things where people are taking advantage of the system. What's kind of your take on it? Do you like the newer style carts? Do you kind of wish we get rid of the pushbacks? What's your take on it?
I mean, I'm torn because I will say flipping was a lot more common back in the day, right? I mean, it wasn't anything to see 5 to 6 flips in a day before these full length rear bumpers. And so it's definitely made the sport safer. There's less broken bones and stuff like that. But I would say, to your point, it's almost enabled aggressive driving because, when I was growing up, if you got into somebody too hard, whether you touch side pods or in the rear, you were going over the top of them and you were paying the price of it. And, nowadays with these bumpers, you can just move somebody right out of the way and there's really no consequence to you. And so, it's a tough deal. The one that I just can't stand, and it's just because I'm an old school racer, is blocking. We didn't have blocking back in the day because, before pushback bumpers, if somebody blocked you, you just moved them out of the way. And that really solved the problem. You block somebody once and they move you out of the way and you lose 2-3 spots. You second guess blocking them again. And, that even leads up into the short track world, where I grew up racing short track and in NASCAR. If somebody blocks you, you move them up out of the track. So coming back to karting now and seeing the level of blocking that there is, that's one thing that definitely I struggle with. Because I just want to so badly move the guy out of the way, and now with the pushback system and the way the officiating is, you would receive the penalty in that circumstance.
Okay, so say you were still track manager, series runner, whatever it may be. Say you have an opinion and a take on how officiating is ran for a series or a racetrack. How would you attack the pushback situation, number one, and number two, to your point, let's say we're on lap 4 and we're blocking for 6th and some guy moves them after 2 laps of getting fed up with it. Are you letting that go, depending on obviously how egregious it is? What would your take be on a situation like that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, my viewpoint's probably unpopular as I'm an old school racer, right? So my theory is let it be decided on the track, take the pushbacks away, and if somebody blocks, that person has every right to move them out of the way. Now, that doesn't mean you put them in the barrier, right? I mean, you don't wreck them, but you have every right to move that guy out of the way. If he's blocking you for 6th place, lap 4 of the race. So that's my take on it. I would say from an officiating standpoint, and I say this lightly because being a race official and a race director is probably the hardest job. And so I do not want to take anything away from what they do. I do not envy that. I never want to be a race director again. But I would say video replay is something that as you move up in higher motorsports, that's used a lot more. And it's good to see, I think USPKS announced this weekend that they're going to be utilizing that. Use that to your advantage because as a race director, the hardest thing is you may have 35 karts on the track and everybody expects you to see your accident or your incident. And it's impossible, right? You're just trying to scan, watch the lead pack, watch, the action. And you're never going to see it all. And so, having that video replay system, I hope is really going to help. The other thing I would say is slow-mo replays on the starts. There's a lot of pushing and shoving that goes on down into these starts, even with the pushbacks, that if you're the aggressor, you benefit from. I feel like if they would take these slow-mo replays, go back and analyze it and penalize a little bit more, that would make guys second guess being so aggressive on the start. And Emery and I just experienced this last weekend at a club race. Miami senior, KA senior. I started 7th. Emery started 9th. and I went into turn one, and before I even turned into the corner, I was spun around backwards. And
Was that Emery's fault?
No, so I knew.
Good.
I know Emery's driving style, and so I knew something had to happen because I was like, "What in the world?" And so got spun around right going into turn one.
Yeah.
Apparently, the guy behind Emery was trying to win the race in turn one, lifted
Real
Emery's
early.
rear tires off the ground, so Emery had no brakes, and he came barreling into me, spun me around backwards, and the next thing I know, 3 guys are running over the top of me. And that's the part of karting that is disappointing to see now. That it's come to that level. And I feel like if we had slow-mo replays, they'd be able to go back and see who was the aggressor there and penalize, because in real time, there's no way you can process that and understand what happened, in that corner. Now, I obviously knew what happened and Emery knew what happened, but there's no way for a race director to see that.
Yeah. So you actually, I think my next question was going to be about the USPKS track camera system. I've been going at it in our private chat, but you obviously said the slow-mo replays are something that you want to see implemented. What else? How else do you think, this is the first time they're doing it. So if there is a USPKS official watching or whatever, or whenever they do have the chance to see this, what would you kind of tell them on, as a customer, as a racer, how would you like to see this new system for them be implemented? What would you want to see working? Obviously, you mentioned the starts, the slow-mo replays, seeing it, used at stars. Now it's their first time using it. How would you like to see this for the first time implemented and used?
I mean, I think for penalty review, it is very handy, right? Because to me, as a race director, I would rather make the call and then rely on the replay to if I made the wrong call, right, rely on the replay to adjust that. Because then you can be more strict. You can say, hey, let's make that call and then let's check the replay and confirm that that's the right call. And we did that at the karting challenge level. We would go back and we had at the time Bailey Sigler up in the tower, and literally I would have him watch back and just reconfirm that that was the right call. And that really helped us because you don't always see it the right way, right? You may see it one way as a race director, and then once you watch the replay, you're like, wow, that did not play out how I saw it with my own 2 eyes. And so, being able to review calls in real time, and I don't know USPKS is structured yet. I don't know if they have somebody reviewing those in real time. I think that would help, and especially on the starts, right? Because the race director, as soon as they go green, he's focused on the field. So having somebody go back and review those starts to see if there was anything that happened, especially if there's a wreck, to try and just deter the aggressive driving. Because like that club race was a perfect example where I don't remember who was behind Emery, but whoever that driver was, he came out of there in 6th place and looked like came out rosy and wrecked 5 go-karts in the process. And there's no consequence. So why would that driver not do that again? He started 11th and came out 5th and got rid of half his competition in turn 1.
Yeah, and like the more you get, the bigger the fields are. For example, like that club race at 30, you add in an extra 10 or 15, it just multiplies the effect of it too. I think you mentioned the replays on the start that you guys used to do, I feel like was extremely effective. And we've seen it in past years too, I think as well, both on our coverage that we've been able to do on the replay side, as well as the race official side, that you're able to pick up 5-6 times as much as you would just off of the initial sort of like full, like whether it be watching it live with your own 2 eyes or watching our stream live. And so, I mean, I guess with that being said, half the battle is getting the right like technology in place, with USPKS has clearly done, and we've all talked about it. The other half on that line is kind of understanding how to implement it. And so you mentioned that you didn't know exactly how your structure or like how USPKS structure would be. If you were building out a race control structure and you had a normal national level staff, a normal national like size staff, how would you set that up to be the most efficient from a race director side?
Well, I mean, I want to be careful because I don't want to step on anybody's toes, and I don't know how they're structured, right? But I just, the experience I have is the way we utilized it at the club races in 2018, 2019. And that was having 1 or 2 guys, in the tower or in a building with live feed that has access to those replays instantly, that has racing knowledge that can make those calls, right? So a race director on track can say, hey man, I think this incident's penalty worthy. let's call it in, let's penalize this guy, and then have those guys double check that replay to make sure that's the case. Because like I said, you don't catch them all, you don't call them all right. It's impossible to do. But I feel like a lot of times race directors are gun shy to make a penalty call because they don't want to make the right call or the wrong call. And so hopefully, that's where I would like to see them utilize that replay, is to confirm that they're making the right call in those instances. And really it comes down to, you're only as good as the people that are reviewing the footage, right? So you got to have good guys that are reviewing that footage, because the race director is consumed by everything that's going on the track. And so there's no way for that person to review any of that footage until the end of the day, when it's obviously too late at that point.
Yeah, that's great. Boys, any other questions before we send Dusty to bed? Because he's got a long day of I guess, setting up tomorrow.
I've got one on this. What's the idea behind running Masters? Because you still have a lot of face in the tank, clearly. We've seen it both nationally and obviously locally the last few years. What's kind of your sort of, I guess, rationale going for Masters as opposed to senior?
Well, the short answer is I have to work on Monday. And so as much as I know I can be competitive in the senior field, right, and have pace, I also realize that the aggression level at the senior field at the national is gotten a lot worse over the years. And, there is a higher chance of me wrecking out. And so for myself, I try to run senior at the club level just to kind of keep myself honest, right, with running with the best guys. But when it comes to the national stuff, ultimately I got to work on Monday. And so I want to make sure I'm walking out of here in one piece. And so, running with some of the Masters guys, most of them are seasoned guys, right? They've been around the sport. They all probably have to work on Monday. And so they're going to think a little bit more about their passes. And so I've really enjoyed stepping up into the Masters field and running it, just because, I know that I'm not going to get my stuff tore up, but I'm also still going to run against really good guys that are going to keep me honest and, make me work for it.
It's a really good answer. I have one more quick factoid before we end this off. So you mentioned at the very start, when you were talking about the trophy that you had in USPKS, that you won it about 5 years ago. It's a little bit further back than that. It was 8 years ago that exact trophy was. And
Emery, this guy.
I was thinking about this earlier today. So Dusty won the very first weekends in KA USPKS, which was the first national KA race in the United States. Before that, he won the first local race in a KA in the United States, which I believe is also the first KA race in the United States as a whole. So I think if there's one legend of KA, like Mount Rushmore of KA drivers, Dusty's an underrated pick for this. So that's all I had to say, because I've been thinking about that this whole time. I saw a picture of, like, when I was going through to try to find like a thumbnail picture for you this weekend of us on the grid on that very first KA race. Because I remember I got on pole. I was like so stoked about it. It was you and Ashley in second and third. Got absolutely whipped in the race. Racecraft for 14-year-old Emery was not there yet. But no, I mean, I guess along those lines, I mean, you have the USPKS one at the start. You've collected a host of trophies. I mean, that whole second line is essentially 10 years of Trackhouse Motorplex dominance in local races. The third shelf is a lot of different recent national races. The fourth shelf is kind of some older stuff. If you had to pick one karting memory, one favorite win, one favorite memory, what would it be?
Oh man, I mean, I think it'd be split up into two. Probably an old school karting memory in my early days was winning the Stars National Championship in Toronto when I was 14. Just the competition back then was immense, and to win a race that year was incredible. I mean, every race somebody else knew won. Or somebody new won the race. So there was no repeat winners that year. And so it was incredibly difficult. And so to win that national race and win that championship, and kind of was my sign off at 14 to karting, that was really big for me back in the day. And then I would say recently, honestly, that USPKS race, that first KA race here for USPKS 8 years ago now, apparently. You're making me sound really old. That was a really cool event, and I got to race against Brandon Drosterkak. He was my main competitor in that race, and Alex, I want to say Bertinoli, it was his name, back in the day. Yeah, and so getting to race Brandon for that win, and beating him, gives me a lot of bragging rights still to this day, and I don't let him live it down. And now I get to see Brandon in the pits coaching all these kids. It's pretty fun, and it kind of makes me, again, dates me, because Brandon's got 12, 14-year-olds that are racing our club in KA Senior, and I was out there racing with Brandon in Senior 8 years ago.
The craziest thing to me about this whole episode is that Emery knows that little bit more than Dusty about his own career, and that's just like always comes out, and it's like this. I don't know how this guy does it.
I'm not even surprised.
I'm not either.
I've got a question for you two, though. There's a notable fact about that race. Where did Xander finish? On
7th.
Fifth. He was on the podium at 2017 USPKS at Trackhouse.
Wow.
So
full circle, man.
That was that's one of the two races that Xander brags about in his karting. it's that, and it's 2019 Ocala. So
hey, there you go.
Dusty, I mean, all timer when it comes to KA racing, Trackhouse racing, GoPro racing in general. I mean, I have to say, like I said, when I was 14 racing, I think it took me probably 2 years to get to the point where I was even confident enough to race consistently with Ashley. And I mean, Dusty left about half a year in to go do race much more significant stuff, like managing the whole series and managing the whole track. But as a whole, I mean, Class A drivers to race against. I do think, quite honestly, the racecraft since that point in the last 8 years has gone downhill a little bit. But as a whole, being able to race against guys like Brandon, guys like Dusty, girls like Ashley was peak times back then. So that's why I remember it more than anything.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, Dusty, I know your light keeps going out, but we're about done here. At the end, like we did with Raif, we give you guys a moment to talk about what you guys got coming up, either races you're doing this year, or what you got going on in your personal life, or we can find you on social media. So the floor is all yours.
Yeah, so I mean, my plan here is to run a few of the national races that are going to come to Trackhouse because it's in my back door. So I'm going to run USPKS, and then try and run Miami Grands, and a few more throughout the year, and then hit a few club races when I can. But yeah, no, really for me at this point in my karting career, it's really just coming out here to enjoy it, have fun, and still be competitive. And as long as I'm competitive, I will continue to do it. And so looking forward to racing this weekend in the KA Masters against some really good guys, and hopefully we come out on top.
Well, there you go. Emery said it, one of the all-time greats in KA, and I think this was one of our all-time favorite interviews that we've had on this show. So we appreciate you coming on. It's been a pleasure. Learned a whole lot, and we're excited to see you this weekend out at Trackhouse.
No, thank you guys very much. And last thing I'd say is thank you to Kart Chaser, man. What you guys have done for the sport is incredible, and you guys are growing karting single-handedly. So keep it up, man, and appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Yes, sir. And we really appreciate it. Means a lot. There's a lot of work that goes into it, that a lot of people don't see, but we really truly appreciate it. And that being said, have a good night, and we'll see you out there this weekend.
Thank you. Take care, you guys. Bye.
Yes, sir. Bye. Well, there you guys have it from Dusty Davis. Another quick commercial break, and we preview just a little bit of what we got coming up this week in the United States Pro Kart Series back at Trackhouse, and we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Are you looking to take the next step in your racing journey? Well, look no further than PitFit.
With 2 locations in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Indianapolis, Indiana, PitFit trains drivers all the way from grassroots level karting to IndyCar and NASCAR. with top-of-the-line personalized coaching to improve physical and cognitive fitness.
For more information on programs, check out PitFit on Instagram or Facebook today.
Hey, what's up, Caleb?
What's up, Brandon?
You sound defeated. A long day at the office?
Yeah, got stuck at a cat food marketing meeting for like 3 hours. I don't know a thing about cat food, and I don't even work in marketing. And then I got sent on a coffee run like I was some sort of intern. Then at the end of the day, when I want to go get gas, I just realized everything is so darn expensive nowadays, man.
Yeah, you got that right.
Like, do you have any idea how much we're spending on Netflix?
That's like $20 a month.
Do you know how much we're spending on cable?
That's like $50 a month.
But you know what isn't expensive?
Tell me.
Kart Chaser Premium. For only $9.99 a month, you can watch all the American karting action live from coast to coast. Subscribe and become a member today.
Alrighty, welcome back to KC Grid Talk, episode number 52. We lost Emery somewhere during that commercial break. He's going to be back, I'm pretty sure. But besides that, Alex, I want to go back to the conversation we had after Daytona. And I think, looking back at that, the episode we had, we were pretty critical about, what we kind of wanted to see and the changes of the series. And with USPKS, whether it was the camera operating system, the payout to the class, especially the X30 Pro class. And, my cap goes off to the entire USPKS crew and the entire, I guess, ownership group and, everybody who does, the decision-making in that series, because, after talking to a lot of the paddock at the end of that weekend and, even customers talking to USPKS directly and seeing the turnaround in the series from where we were in Daytona just a month or 2 months ago to where we are now with, the want for change, with the want of implementing new camera systems for the officiating side of things, with the bigger payouts. I think that's exactly how you want, I think, a response like that to be seen and, really listen and have voices heard in the paddock and have our voices heard and have other people's voices heard as well. I think, to me, that's the most fulfilling thing coming in around 2, and I could not be more excited coming into this weekend. Excited to see the change, excited to see the new stuff that we're expecting to see this weekend, Alex.
Yeah, I think your question to Dusty was very valid too. Of like, how do you want it to be? How would you want it to be implemented? Because one thing is bringing it in, and now it's using it properly, right? And I wholeheartedly believe that USPKS is going to do it right. They're going to bring in this camera system, and hopefully is going to eliminate a lot of the leave it up to, a human body to kind of somehow call all 30, 40 go-karts on the racetrack, right? Because that's always been the biggest thing as an official. Like Dusty said, it's in general, refereeing, no matter what sport it is like the job that I would not want to do in this world. It is a lose-lose. Someone's always mad at you. Someone's maybe going to be happy with you, but someone's always going to be mad at you. It's never the right call to somebody, and it's a tough job. But you know what doesn't lie? Just like data, cameras. They don't lie. If you move somebody and there's a camera that shows it, you move somebody, right? Pinpoint, done deal. And if it's a penalty in the rule book, it's a penalty because we have proof of it. And that's most people's biggest, argument is like, oh, I got moved. But if it's a fight for 15th on the racetrack, while, Bailiff and Musgrave are going after it at Speed Sports, which is a big controversy that we had, obviously, during the Pro Tour, was, the biggest argument that we had on the show a couple weeks ago was that same move was probably done 10 different times that race further back that wasn't caught. So now, hopefully, we're going to have a lot less of a up in the air sort of feel, right? And a lot more of a black and white, this is it, penalty, no penalty, there's no questions asked. And like to Dusty's point, I think it's going to help with officials being more stern on making a call right away instead of not making a call and then overturning a no call to a call. It's easier to always go out there and make the call and then, video actually proved that I was a little bit wrong. I'll remove the penalty. Like that to me is the proper way to go about it. I think the camera system is going to be fantastic. And now, obviously, with the payouts as well, I'm excited. I'm so excited for this weekend. I think this is a huge step forward for USPKS. This is what the series and what the sport we're heading this way, right? More cash prizes, better officiating. They answered the call, right? And you can't
Oh,
ask
yeah.
for anything better from a series.
Emery, you're obviously going to be on the other side of the fence this weekend, like we like to say. But we talked to Dusty about it. What are you kind of looking forward in the implementations of, the new, I guess you can say, race officiating side of things with the cameras and stuff like that USPKS is bringing in this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be interesting to watch it from the driver's side. I mean, I'm hoping that I'm far enough up that it's stuff that would get caught anyways. But if I'm more towards the midfield or further back, I mean, having a video review system there and having kind of a video system in general will help a lot when it comes to picking up the calls through the field. I think in the KA category as well, it's going to be extremely useful just because of,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like me and Dusty were talking about, it's impossible to catch things when you're battling for 28th or 29th. Like you're not going to be able to get them. And to their credit, USPKS has done a phenomenal job, I think, over the years in terms of their depth of penalties. But this is a game changer. And like to be able to have video review, we talked about it after Daytona. I think it was a necessary investment for them, both on the technological side and then I think as well, like I said with Dusty, the one thing I'm really curious is how their workflow is going to kind of change and how that's going to be implemented, because as much as video can help, I still think that's where kind of everything's won or lost. Like when it comes to how you're reviewing those videos, who you have in charge, kind of this personnel acclimatization that you use. I think that's going to be something that honestly we probably won't get an overly inward view of, but I think that's going to be kind of the key to the whole operation. But ultimately, a strong step forward to USPKS. I hope it doesn't have much of an impact on my weekends, but overall, big fan.
Yeah, and again, kind of like we were saying, right? A huge hats off to them, and the want to change, the want to grow, the want to keep the customers happy. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Listening, and wanting to be there for the customer. I think that shows a lot about this series, and it's exciting to see. And we're excited to see how it's implemented this weekend. On the entry side of things, I think we're about the 230 mark, so it's good. The X30 Pro class has gained a couple of numbers in the past 2 days. We're up to 20, and the payout is already showing into the top 6. Everybody's getting, upwards of $1,000. I think the winner is at $5,070, if I'm not mistaken here, fellas. And then down to 6th place, I think is just at the 1,000 mark. So that's another cool thing. We're paying out the top 5, the top 6. Which I think is super cool to see. And it's not too late to register for those of you at home wanting to get out to a race, local to Trackhouse. If you want to get out there and race, not too late. There's money up for grabs, I think, all throughout the field. So that'll be exciting. Emery probably should have ran X30. Speaking about you, Emery, what are realistic expectations for this weekend? Where do you think we're going to finish?
I'm hoping up towards the front. I mean, look, this is the best I've felt about a weekend in about 18 months. So I do think that there's more optimism on my side than recent times, but you never know. I mean, K is a stacked field. I mean, I look down the entry list, I'm like, man, you can name 15 or 20 guys that I would say have been at the front at some point this year. And it's daunting.
Oh, yeah.
To go from Chapel Hill and everything I've done the last 5 or 6 months and jump back in the seat against these guys, it'll be an uphill battle. But I mean, like I said, I have confidence in myself. If there's one person that's run more laps around that place than Dusty has, it's probably me. So, I mean, that won't go away.
Dang.
The
and
K
Paulie
experience
running.
won't go away.
Paulie's running, yeah.
Low-key, I mean, Paulie's definitely got me beat over the last 5 years, but I had a pretty big head start the first 3 or 4 years we were out at Trackhouse. So we're in the same stratosphere. But I think if you're setting betting odds, I'd set Paulie's at about 5 or 6 times mine. But implied odds about 5 or 6 times higher than what mine would be. But I'll get it done. I'll find a way to be up there. I have faith in
what?
myself.
We need to start the karting sports betting, and I got Emery's money line for I guess better than 10th. So I'll take that money line here this weekend. Sound good?
Alex, thoughts?
Alex, bets, thoughts?
I'll take Emery at plus 2,000.
I don't know what that means.
I think that's a decent. No, that's a little disrespectful. Plus 1,000. Plus 1,000.
Man, I'd give myself plus 2,000 looking outwards. I'm not gonna lie.
No.
I'd bet on myself still.
Minus 150.
No, I don't know. I don't want this to turn into KC gambling. But I do feel good about myself for this weekend. Can we have Kahoot? Kahoot is coming.
It's on the horizon. It's on the
Yes.
horizon.
Stay tuned. Not next week, not the week after, but it will be within our next 4 episodes.
Yes.
Stay tuned.
Spoiler alert for MCC Scusa. So I think that's the next. So it'll be exciting from us here. The 3 of us will be on site here later on this weekend for the second round of the United States Pro Kart Series. Another busy week for us. We're going to be over in California for the Tri-C Club race over at K1 Circuit. And we're obviously going to be at Trackhouse Motorplex for the second round of the United States Pro Kart Series. From us here at Grid Talk, we thank you guys for joining us for episode number 52. It's been a pleasure. And we'll see you guys on the racetrack this weekend. We are, I think, 8 a.m. start for us, right?
Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are live
yeah.
Saturday, Sunday.
I don't know why I asked you, Emery, but yeah, Alex, 8 a.m. start.
Yep.
We're excited for it. We're going to be there. Henry Baudet's joining us this week, so that'll be exciting. But from us here at KC Grid Talk, we thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you this weekend on stream, on track. So enjoy it. Safe travels to those of you going to Trackhouse, and we'll see you there. Have a good night.